Hello, Carolyn.
Hi, Kevin told me you guys were running a little bit behind schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually the commissioner's fault. We had a bit of a long discussion in our work sessions.
It's all good. I'm here. So
All right. Welcome back, directors. Director Willie, Director Treese, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay. Over to you, Director Harrington.
All right. Welcome to the Washington County Housing Authority Board of Directors for Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Clerk Moss, roll call and announcements, please.
Thank you, Director Harrington. Washington County Board of Directors for the Housing Authority is now beginning this regular session, April 5th, 2022. Director Savara.
Present.
Director Roper.
present.
Director Rogers.
Here.
Director Fye.
Here.
Director Treese.
Here.
Director Willie.
Here.
Director Harrington.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Moss. The first item on our agenda, or the next item on our agenda, is public communication. This is an opportunity for community members to share their comments with the Housing Authority Board of Directors for up to 2 minutes each. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to speak with us?
Madam Director, we had no one signed up. Would any members of the public wish to address the Housing Authority for up to 2 minutes? I'll give you just a moment to raise your hands. Not seeing any hands, Madam Director.
All righty, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 3 items. Approval of the minutes for the March 1st, 2022 meeting. Another item to approve payments for emergency repairs at the Aloha Quality Inn. And the third item is to accept the fiscal year 2020-2021 Housing Authority Annual Financial Report. What are the wishes of the board?
Motion.
We have a motion from Director Roper. We have a second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, directors. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Next on our agenda, we have a public hearing. So the topic is related to the annual permanent housing plan, including the moving to work supplement to HUD. Do we have a brief staff report or a staff report before we open the public hearing? Yes, we do, according
Yes,
to
we do, Madam Chair.
our directors. Okay. Director Comey Kalavar, could you please introduce the topic and your staff who will be presenting, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So our mission today is to conduct a public hearing and authorize the executive director to submit plus the MTW Move to Work Supplement fiscal year 22 to federal HUD. So with that, I would like to introduce Melissa Sonsala and Josh Kreitz who will walk you through a brief PowerPoint.
Good morning, Chair Harrington, Board of Directors. As usual, it's great to be with you this morning. Next slide, please. So just a quick agenda. We're going to give a very quick staff presentation and then answer any questions that you might have. And then the process will be a public hearing and board approval, authorizing the chair to execute the required Housing Authority certifications and submit the MTW plan. Next slide, please. So we come to your board every single year to authorize us to turn in our public housing plan. And this year it's a little bit different because now we have a moving to work supplement. So we're really excited about that. But the yearly moving to work plan is an update on kind of what we've been doing for the last year, how we're meeting our goals. And if there's any types of new activities that we need to submit to HUD, we have to obviously have that in there. So there's just three things in here that we want to call out for your highlight. That's the ongoing conversations with HUD around the Section 18 disposition. As you may recall, we've had multiple conversations over the last couple of years. This is the disposition of 60 single-family homes. And so that continues. We've been having these conversations with HUD since I came here, so the last 3 years. So that's one activity that we wanted to highlight. Another activity is additional project-based vouchers. Again, this is our opportunity to use our tenant-based vouchers and put them into projects like many of the Metro Bond projects that we're investing our vouchers into. And then our moving to work activities. It's also an opportunity for us to give a progress report to HUD. And I'm happy to report that despite all the different hurdles that we've had with COVID-19, we continue to progress on our 5-year plan. We've increased affordable housing options, promoting self-sufficiency, and focusing on equal opportunity. I'll just pull out a little blurb for you that I thought was worth mentioning. Over the last 3 years, specifically in last year, we've been able to go to HUD and get new VASH vouchers for our homeless veterans, mainstream vouchers for homeless and disabled individuals, and emergency housing vouchers for homeless individuals. So we continue to increase our federal voucher count, and that's obviously a huge part of what we're doing here. There's also certifications via our HUD forms, consistency with a consolidated plan, and compliance with our PHA plan, civil rights, and related laws and regulations. Next slide, please. As you may recall, last month we brought before a slate of moving to work activities. Again, we're really excited about these. And just as a brief highlight, again, we're going to implement a tiered rent program that will change the way some folks have their rent calculated, again, to help increase self-sufficiency and allow folks to keep more income as they progress in their jobs. Simplifying our rent calculation, again, less burden on our tenants about the information they have to give us. Triennial reviews for our senior disabled families, again, less information they have to provide for us and less administrative burden for the Housing Authority. Simplifying our inspection process. Creating this local project-based voucher program. Again, this helps us with giving more vouchers out into the community for project-based developments like Metro Bond. A voucher set-aside program, which is our first activity will be working with the Beaverton School District to do a project for homeless students. And then we're also looking at doing some things around strategic wait list. Again, this is an opportunity for us to do things differently with our wait list so we can prioritize different populations based on different partnerships that we come up with, like the Beaverton School District. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview of the public process. So in February, the draft Housing Authority plan and the Moving to Work supplement was posted on our website. We previewed last month in March with the Housing Authority Board of Directors, our MTW slate of activities. We also previewed this with our Housing Advisory Committee multiple times. We have a Public Housing Authority Resident Advisory Board, and we were able to go over the MTW plan and the PHA plan with them. And then we also held 4 virtual public meetings over the course of the last couple months with community partners, residents, and participants. And that brings us to today, April 5th, which would be the public hearing, which is the next step in our process. Next slide, please. So we want to just pause and see now at this point if there's any questions from your board around the PHA plan or our Moving to Work supplement. Thank you.
Directors, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Josh, I'm sorry, I got a call from my wife. We have a broken sink at home, and so she's telling me about the plumber. Unfortunately, life's little blips, but I've always been concerned, and I know I think I've talked with you about this, about the number of vouchers that we receive. I've always thought for a size of a county, an area, an urban area, that we've not gotten our proportional share. And I know everybody feels like they don't. Can you kind of give me some general information on how we're doing? Are we getting, I know we're getting more, but how does that rate in comparison to other counties and similar metropolitan areas like ours?
Yeah, I could have an hour meeting on this subject, so I'll condense it down to just a couple minutes. First of all, I think what we've seen historically is the massive allocations of vouchers in public housing in the country were really done, in the early parts of the HUD program. So you'll see an area like Cleveland, Ohio, who has 20,000 units of public housing and vouchers. And then you come out here to areas that have grown quicker, have larger populations, they have a third of those vouchers in public housing. So I think a lot of the early allocations happened in cities that had developed, earlier in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. The pace of getting voucher allocations is just slow. The funding just hasn't been there. And what we have seen in the last couple of years is special purpose vouchers like HUD VASH, mainstream, and emergency housing vouchers really focused on target populations. There was a large voucher allocation in the Build Back Better Act that obviously has stalled out, where a significant number of new vouchers was going to be allocated. But I am happy to say that in this current fiscal year budget, federal budget, 20,000 new vouchers are going to be allocated. So the Housing Authority should receive an allocation, and we will continue to apply for any additional competitive increments of vouchers. But in general, we have an affordable housing crisis, and we have thousands of people sitting on our wait list. We haven't been able to help. So it is an ongoing concern.
Any other questions, directors? Okay, I'll just share that your presentation has answered my question through all the different valuable but numerous acronyms. I misspoke earlier with regard to what PHA stands for, and I now stand corrected that it is Public Housing Agency, PHA plan. So thank you. Looks like we're done with questions. So the next step would be for us to open a public hearing. So Clerk Moss, I'd like to open a public hearing on this matter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Director. Would any members of the public wish to provide testimony on this public hearing item? I'll give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, Madam Director.
And with that, I'll close today's public hearing. And we are being asked by our staff to authorize the chair to execute the required PHA, Public Housing Agency plan certifications, direct and authorize the executive director to submit the annual PHA plan, including the moving to work supplement to HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Agency. Do we have such a motion?
Motion.
We have a motion from Director Savaro. Do we have a second? We have a second from we had a motion from Director Roper, a second from Director Savaro. Are there any questions or comments before I take a vote on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raising your hand. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Next, we'll move on to the action items. Today, we have one action item to approve the resolution and order in the matter of authorizing the issuance of up to $73 million of revenue bonds, which 58 million would be tax exempt and 15 million would be taxable, for the Housing Authority of Washington County AHP4 Portfolio Rehabilitation Project. I know we've heard a little bit about this before, but nonetheless, let's get a summary from our staff. I'll turn it over to you, Director Calavar. There he is on my screen.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board of Directors. My name is Komi Calavar. I'm Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Washington County. The resolution and order before you this morning will approve issuance of revenue bonds, which is required for our AHP4 portfolio rehabilitation project. This project will renovate 332 units at 5 of Housing Authority's properties. They are located in Tigard, Forest Grove, unincorporated Washington County, Aloha, and the revenue bonds will be leveraged with tax credits, low-income housing tax credits for the overall project. We are very excited where we have come through with this journey, rehabbing our portfolio. The project, right now, we are working towards a financial closing and construction dramatically, I have heard, in the past several months, and we've been working with the contractor and architects to refine the scope and also align the budget to the work we want to do. The process is ongoing, but right now we are here for approval of the resolution and order for the issuance of the 73 million in revenue bonds. Thank you.
Directors, do you have any questions at this time?
I do have one.
Go
I do
ahead,
have one.
Commissioner Rogers.
Comey, I obviously much overdue improvements. We've chatted about this many, many times, but just out of curiosity, it's a low bond rate time. I mean, the interest rates aren't jumping quite as much as I thought. How much more deferred maintenance do we have that we are unattending?
So the portfolio of bond projects is 10 overall. We are rehabbing 4 with this action. There's 6 more buildings to go. That will be the second phase. But when we are done with this rehab, which is 47 million in direct construction costs, there will be no deferred maintenance at the conclusion of construction. That's our hope.
Good job. The answer I wanted. Thank you.
All right.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve this resolution in order? We have a motion from Director Roper. Do we have a second? Second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Next, we move on to our second public, good work, staff. I want to make sure I say that. Our second period of public communication. This is a time for up to 5 minutes a person. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to engage with us at this time?
We had no one signed up, Madam Director. Would any members of the public wish to address the Housing Authority Board for up to 5 minutes? Please utilize the raise hand function. We have one hand, Madam Chair. Dale Fee, can you hear us?
Yes, Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Be very short. I appreciate all the hard work that all of you've done on the Housing Authority and also the county commissioners and the leadership you're providing for very needed services. So I just want to say thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. And I do not see any additional hands, Madam Director.
Thank you. Before we move on, are there any Board of Director announcements for today from any of you? Go ahead, Director Roper.
Hi, everybody. Comey, Josh, you guys do a wonderful job. I do appreciate you guys having the RAB meeting and the other meeting in regards to HUD's doing inspection currently. I just wanted to voice out some of the concerns that some of the attendees mentioned at that meeting, and it was kind of like a little bit alarming. Do these like HUD inspections affect us tremendously when it comes to applying or getting allocations for more vouchers? And secondly, is there going to be a little bit a new like implementation of like meeting residents' needs? Because some of the complaints that I heard was in regards around to timeliness of, I know that you guys are shorthanded and everything that's going on. I get both sides of the picture, but it was just a continuing question that was being addressed. And some people were not going to be in a certain programs. Some of them were FSS. There was a variety of people. And their main concern is about the timeliness of getting like major job repairs and other resources to go to, like maybe community action for weatherization, fixes and so forth, and along those lines. And so I just thought I'd throw that out there. So in case I go to another RAP meeting, that I could defend you guys a little bit better too, and give them some updates as well.
Yeah, so I could jump on that. So the inspections that Carolyn is talking about, they're called REACT inspections, and HUD's delayed them for the last 3 years, but now they're coming back out and doing them. It's just an assessment of where the properties are at, and HUD comes out yearly and does them. So we feel pretty good about our REACT scores. The REACT inspections are a kind of archaic type of way of inspecting. I've been at several public housing authorities. But we think we're ready for them, and we're not concerned about our funding levels based off of REACT inspection. On our maintenance, it sounded like what you're referring to is just the timeliness of maintenance work orders. Am I
Yeah, that was something that was brought up a lot at that meeting. It was just kept on being a reoccurring question. And there was like only so much like Will could say, nor I can say from experience on you guys. I mean, certain things you guys are very quick, like Thanksgiving, I had no oven. You guys came out that morning, that same day, but it's just like that seems to be one of the main concerns. And when I first got with a housing authority, that was one of my problems too, you know. So I mean, just is there going to be some more staffing hired to help with that?
Yeah, well, I would say this. So we track maintenance work orders in 2 ways, right? We look at general work orders and emergency work orders, and we have metrics around, when they need to be completed by. So in general, we're meeting all of our metrics as far as like HUD guidelines on like when a work order needs to be completed. If an emergency comes up, it has to be done within 24 hours. We're meeting that. If the work order, a general work order, I believe it's 20 days. 15 days, I'm sorry, that general work order needs to be completed. But yeah, we are looking at different things around like bringing other contractors to help us. So like instead of us doing our lawn care stuff or grounds work, we have a contractor doing that so we can keep up on other more general work orders around like, fridges and wall issues or door issues and things like that. But we always jump on the emergency work order. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I just thought I just throw that out there. I mean, you guys do great work, and most of the attendees was very grateful. Sorry for the echo. Most of the attendees is very grateful for everything that they have and to be in housing. And, in that sense, they were fine. But the frustration of getting things done or just the mess that's behind to clean up and just the expenses of utilities, because some of these households don't get that benefit, that little break.
Reimbursement. Yeah. We've definitely seen that sometimes the utilities are really, really tough on families, and some don't get the utility reimbursements based on their income levels. But we have implemented too, like a policy where we're giving like cards out so we can hear about customer service, satisfaction levels, where the different issues are. So we'll take this back to the asset management and public housing team. And I'm going to be at the next resident advisory board committee. So I'd like to hear a little bit more myself. Thanks.
Thank you.
I would like to hear back on that if the timeliness concerns that were expressed by the members who attended the resident advisory board, if their experience was greater than the 15 days, or they perceived it to be greater than the metrics timeframe, or what. So if we could get some further information in the future to help close the loop on that, that might be valuable for the Housing Authority Board of Directors.
We can do that.
But that's just my view, 1 of 7.
We could do that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Director Roper, for sharing that. Are there any other comments from any directors today that you'd like to share? Okay, well, that seems to be it for our monthly Housing Authority Board of Directors. Do we have a motion to adjourn today's Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting? We have a motion from Director Roper. Do we have a second? We have a second from Director Savaro. Thank you for being here, the two of you. It's always great to see you. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. So we will pause for a moment so that we can use the same Zoom link to convene as the Washington County Board of Directors. Excuse me, commissioners.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Stay
Thank you. Have a
healthy.
nice day.
You too.
Right. Madam Chair, we are all ready to go.
All right. I'd like to gavel into the Tuesday, April 5th, 2022 Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. Clerk Moss, announcements, please.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts, is now meeting this regular session, April 5th, 2022. Commissioner Treese.
Here.
Commissioner Fye.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Vice Chair Willie.
Here.
Chair Harrington.
Here, thank you very much. To our commissioners and to our public, we do have an updated agenda for today's meeting. There are two items that were added to the consent agendas, item 18 and 19. 18 comes to us from Support Services to accept our fiscal year 2021 annual comprehensive financial report, single audit report, and other related financial reports. Item C19 is a grant waiver for a request for proposals process for the Civic Leader Program trainers. All right, so the first item on the next item on our agenda is public communication. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone signed up who wishes to address the board this morning for up to 2 minutes individual or 10 minutes for a group?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do. Our first one is Dennis Tomlinson. Dennis, can you hear us? He's got to unmute, Dennis.
Okay, can you hear me
There
now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First, no one I have spoken with is opposed to the city of Tigard building low-income senior housing. However, they are all opposed to the location. There are so many issues that make it wrong. Parking, of course, is one of them. They misrepresent the needed parking for the senior center at 48, which is the amount currently located there, ignoring the fact of the overflow parking agreement with the neighboring church, which was used on a daily basis by at least 10 to 12 participants. This will reduce the amount of Tigard seniors who will be able to attend the senior center for meals, activities, and socialization. I will also say that at the beginning of the project, they just assumed and posted on their website that the church would provide the additional parking spots to provide the required 78 parking spots for the development, all without talking to the church about this first. That agreement with the church has now been canceled. Safety is another. So many waivers were given slowly because it is for low income individuals. There's only one ingress egress. The turnarounds are limited. They blocked off the circular drive around the senior center, and those are just some of them. The closure of the senior center for an additional time, perhaps up to 2 years or more, is going to have a devastating effect on the mental health and well-being of many Tigard seniors. They have expressed their extreme disappointment in what will be their lack of socialization and activities, which they were so looking forward to after the pandemic. It would seem that it will take longer than what the mayor described as 14 or so months to complete, as there will first be the need to move the sewer, which exists in unstable sandy loam under the parking lot where the building is to be located, and for which there were issues when it was first installed due to that. And now the city is providing money to an affordable housing project in the Tigard Triangle, which is a location which had been suggested by many people I have spoken with for this project. It appears the city was looking for a cheap solution for low-income seniors. And that ends my comments, but I have Jim Iverson here with me because to be on Zoom. So can he speak now?
Yes, he can.
Hi, this is Jim Iverson. And you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. From the start in 2019, any opposing narrative to the city was ignored. And if parking is not a problem, why does the city rent 20 parking spaces from the church for library employees? And at one of the Zoom meetings, when my wife asked if there was any other locations considered, the response was, I don't remember. And at a city council meeting, we were told that, quote, we were lucky that we were even told about it. And the trailhead, the city denies that there is a senior center trailhead to Fano Creek path, which requires designated parking. Yet on a prominent sign with a city logo on it in downtown Tigard, it shows the senior center trailhead to Fano Creek Trail. And why did it say, well, again, on the city website that, as Dana said, that the church parking lot could be used without telling the church? That really was something. And why was there a picture on the city website of a group of smiling ladies in front of a Lake Grove facility saying this was a neighborhood meeting for the housing alongside the Tigard, the city center? And if a 58 unit building and 23 more parking spaces were added to the existing 48, on paper, it looks good. Then why do we have an engineering report that we sent to you that this won't fit on the 1.7 acres? And why were the seniors denied signing a petition opposing the location of the proposed senior housing at the senior center? And
Thank you, Mr. Iverson. Next, Madam Chair, we have Marilyn Strum. Marilyn, can you hear us? Can you unmute, Marilyn? Marilyn, we'll try to work with you and get you on the end. Next, Madam Chair, we have Dale Feek. Dale, can you hear us?
I can, Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Harrington and Commissioners, I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network. We're a coalition of grassroots advocates dedicated to improving the quality of life in Washington County by promoting healthy and sustainable communities, social and economic justice, and open and responsive government. I want to compliment you, Chair Harrington, and Commissioners for having open and responsive government. Much appreciated. I sent you an email related to my search on landfills. I'm working with the person from DEQ, Spencer, and he is helping me make sure I get those requests as I requested them. So I'll keep you up to date on what I learned. The second comment has to do with the action item that you're going to take later in your agenda, having to do the adoption of the Charter for Advisory Council on Racial Equity. And, living in the most diverse county of the state, as Chair Harrington has said, she led the charge for Washington County to pass its first ever equity resolution with the support of the commissioners, and to hire an equity officer and staff. And she continues to, and you continue to pave the way to ensure that equity and inclusion are the center of our county policies. Much appreciated, much needed. I appreciate all of your leadership in making that happen. And Latricia Tillman is going to be making a presentation shortly, in your agenda items, and requesting adoption of the charter for the Advisory Council on Racial Equity. There were 18 community organizations help give input on that, so please adopt that resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peak. Next, Madam Chair, the last person we have, Jonathan Polonsky. Jonathan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Chair Harrington, Commissioners, my name is Jonathan Polonsky. I'm President and CEO of Plaid Pantry. Thank you for the opportunity to put a few facts about Ordinance 878 on the record. I am not in favor of Ordinance 878, and while drafting my voters pamphlet argument in opposition to the ordinance, it became apparent to me that the No on 878 campaign slogan that I had used to gather signatures to refer the ordinance could not be used in my argument or for any campaign leading up to the May 17th election, because the ballot title, which was written by the county, makes a no vote a vote in favor of the ordinance. Yes has become no, and no has become yes. This seemed amiss to me, so I asked Mr. Nathan Reitman, the lawyer who represents the Oregon Neighborhood Stores Association, or ONSA, to give me his thoughts on the matter. On March 24th, 2022, I emailed Mr. Carr, the county's chief counsel, a memo written by Mr. Reitman, which outlined the reasons he believes the ordinance's ballot title is unconstitutional. All the members of this commission also received that memo. The next morning, Mr. Carr replied to my email stating in part, quote, "This issue came up shortly after we submitted the ballot title language," unquote. It is very troubling the county took no proactive steps to remedy a known issue in the ballot title. Unfortunately, the inevitable outcome will likely result in litigation, further eroding the public's trust in the people they elect to run their government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polonsky. Let's give one more chance to Marilyn. Marilyn, can you hear us now? One more try, Marilyn.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yay! Yes, this is what I feel about that development project on our property and the senior center property. In 1981, the city of Tigard and the council approved this center to be built for us seniors, for a special places for us to eat, meet, and greet, and support good health and well-being to each other. Destroying this senior center site and the historic wetland grounds, now building a 4-story, 54-unit house living building on our space is ludicrous and dangerously unsafe and frustrating. No place to park. Yes, as seniors driving their own cars, the healthier life care increases the senior independent period. The center has profound limited ground space to achieve this period. Closure of the senior center for another 1.5 years, continued from the COVID-19 pandemic, is dangerous for our senior health and well-being. Just relocate this beautiful housing project to another spot that would be so accessible, walkable to everything for us elder citizens. Flat terrain, no uphill hills, safety crosswalks, and transportation lines is just a couple of steps away. Thank you for meeting with us today and reevaluate project considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And Madam Chair, that concludes our 10-minute time period. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Ms. Angie, I have a couple of questions. Today, we've had the opportunity to hear from 3 folks opposed to the city of Tigard constructing a senior affordable housing project. It's my understanding that through the Board of Commissioners and the Housing Authority of Washington, no, just through the Board of Commissioners, that we have empowered you and your staff to utilize a portion of the county's Metro Affordable Housing Bond dollars to accommodate the city of Tigard's request and their interest to pursue this construction project. First, so 2 related questions. One, is my understanding correct? And 2, if my understanding is correct, would it be possible for us to in some way clarify that this board does not control that project? Or another option might be for us as a board to make arrangements so that the testimony from today is provided to the city of Tigard, or some option altogether different.
Good question, Chair. During the public testimony today, I reached out actually to the city manager, Steve Reimer, already, and shared that we did have public comment. And in addition, I will ask staff through Clerk Moss, get the contacts of our speakers and provide them with information, as well as a contact at the city of Tigard for them to reach out to.
Yeah, I appreciate our 3 community members coming today. We have had others come to us in the past. We've tried to make it clear what our role is in providing funding, but it is indeed not the county's project. And I just want to make sure that community members don't get frustrated, or that board members don't get frustrated hearing about a project that we don't have control over. So thank you for that. Then my last question is towards the topic that Mr. Polanski raised. And it's my understanding that under your direction, as well as the direction, your direction as the county administrator and owning implementation through the elections office, as well as with Mr. Carr, our county counsel, that this board has not played a role as per authority with regard to ballot titles and appeals and things of that nature. Is there anything more from what you've heard today that we on the board need to consider, whether that question is answered by yourself, Ms. Angie, or from Mr. Anderson, please?
I would actually defer that answer to Mr. Anderson. Thank you.
Chair, Board of Commissioners, this issue has been raised with our office, and we have communicated back to the individuals who are raising the issue. As we've shared with you, there was an opportunity at time to appeal the ballot measure title, and nobody and anybody could have appealed that ballot title, and nobody did within the time frame allowed by law. So that's where we sit right now with this.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Commissioner Rogers, you have some questions.
Yeah, get the mouse to the unmute. It does beg the question on I was going to take that item, the Tigard Senior Center project, off the agenda just to allow people to be heard today anyway. But it does beg the question of clarification as to our role. And I think the chair did say it correctly. I think there's an assumption that somehow we are making some kind of assessment of whether these projects are good or not good, or appropriate or not appropriate. In this case, very familiar with the site, and I'm very familiar with what the issues are. And it seems that in certain roles, we should have some input, even if it's nothing more than to say that we have had public communication. There seems to be raised questions on citing. There needs to be an understanding what our role is, maybe some clarification. Because this site, I don't know that you would all know that, but it's a neighborhood street. It's located on. That's what it is, and it's a one that takes a sharp sort of dog leg approach, and it's off to the right, and the church in front of it. It's abutting a green space area, and then across the way is a park, and it's a tight space to do anything in. And I know that the public in there saying this is not, doesn't have the right layout for this kind of project. Again, that's not our role. It's the city of Tigard, but I do think that we need to understand clearly what not only our role is and communicate that, which I think we have, but to assess, do we have any comment period? Should we have any comment period? There's another project in Tigard I want to comment on today too, and I'll do that at the appropriate time. But these are all great projects. They need to be done. I mean, they're housing, but it lacks any. It had no provided parking. It has they're lending out a electric car for use for some people. No sidewalks, no street grid system. It's going to be a very difficult traffic situation, if not mobility situation. So I think we have some role. So anyway, I'll stop. But I think during the time, I'd like to pull those off of the consent agenda and just say, should we not offer? And if the board doesn't want to, I'll offer comment on my own and say, consider it. I mean, just consider it. So, all right, that's what I had.
So I think what I heard through that was your request to remove item C7 off the consent agenda as well as C8. But I'm not sure if I missed or misunderstood if there were questions there to Ms. Angie or Mr. Anderson.
It's items 7 and 8 on the agenda. That's on the consent agenda. And the question is should we not send a letter that would clarify our role, that we're simply a agency passing through money, but do we have comment in regard to the project? That there are a lot of people who don't think they've been heard. So that's not for us, that's for them. But we simply articulate that they might want to take that testimony again. So that's
so. Would you like us to have that discussion now, or
Yes.
have that discussion when we act on items 7 and 8 under the action?
I would like to remove them from the consent and then talk about them then.
And then talk about them then.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rogers, your hand is still raised. Do you have any other questions? No? Okay. Commissioner Willie, Vice Chair Willie.
Yeah, I would, and probably I should just wait on this, but anyway, I just would agree that I think we at least, because we are one of the organizations that they're voicing their concerns to, I would like to see us at least convey these concerns in some sort of a letter from the commission to the city of Tigard, and just convey the concerns that we have and what we've been hearing, and ask if they have been addressed. And so we're not just saying thank you very much, but we're not responsible for that project, but that we are at least hearing their concerns.
Are there any other board questions with regard to public communication at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to today's consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 17 items. Items 7 and 8 will be moved to the action item. So that leaves us with one set of minutes 1 item from Clean Water Services, 1 from County Administrative Office, 1 from the Sheriff's Office, 2 from Health and Human Services, 1 from Housing Services, and 7 from Land Use and Transportation, followed by 1 from the Office of Community Development, 1 from Support Services, and oops, I misspoke, a second one from the County Office, the County Administrative Office. What are the wishes of the commission for today's consent agenda as summarized? We have a motion from Vice Chair Willie, a second from Commissioner Fye, if I caught that right. Did I capture that right? Yes, I did. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. This is on the, excuse me, let me clarify. This is on the 17 items. Commissioner Rogers, do you have a question or a comment
Just
on
a
the
request,
motion?
just a request of Tanya and of Mark Jockers in regard to items 2 and 18, the audit. I certainly vote to accept those, but I would love to get a copy of the 2 letters. If there is a letter to management, I didn't see it. It's the other report. If there is a communication, a required communication under standards, I'd like to see that communication letter. If there are any past adjustments, the schedule of past adjustments, I'd like to see that as well. And so it's just a request. I'll vote for the motion, but none of those documents, which are required kinds of communications, have I seen. So I'd love to see them. That's it.
So we'll leave it to you, Ms. Angie and Mr. Jockers, to also answer the question, has staff posted all of the required documentation on the 2 agencies' websites, in addition to addressing Commissioner Rogers' questions? So back to the motion that's on the table. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to proclamations. Today, we have 3 proclamations, the first of which is to proclaim April 4th through the 10th of 2022 as National Public Health Week in Washington County. We'd like to turn it over now to Ms. Mira Samantel, the Interim Director of Health and Human Services, to introduce her team and the overview of the proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Harrington. Well, good morning, Chair Harrington, Board of County Commissioners. I am so pleased to be here with all of you today during National Public Health Week. As the chair said, my name is Mira Samantel. I'm the Interim Director of Health and Human Services. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Marie Bowman-Davis, who is our Public Health Division Manager, and she will go ahead and kick things off. Marie?
Thank you, Mira. Good morning, Commissioners. Today is we're requesting the Board of County Commissioners to help us proclaim April 4th through 10th as National Public Health Week. This year's theme, Public Health is Where You Are, is a great reminder of all the ways that public health works to create healthy people and healthy communities. The Public Health Division serves many roles in protecting people's lives, in addition to supporting and promoting community well-being. This includes providing services such as communicable disease and public health emergency preparedness, as well as services for children and families, such as women, infants, and children, and universally offered home visiting for all newborns, supporting food access, and working with partners to ensure that all aspects of our community have the resources they need to be healthy. We are going to be celebrating this week by offering a suicide prevention training for county staff and recognizing partners who support this work and the values of public health through our Public Health Awards. I believe I am joined today by our Public Health Advisory Council Chair, Jennifer, who will read the proclamation.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jennifer McElravy. I'm the Chair of the Public Health Advisory Council. Whereas the week of April 4th through the 10th, 2022, is National Public Health Week, and the theme is Public Health is Where You Are. And whereas public health professionals help communities prevent, prepare for, withstand, and recover from the impact of a full range of health threats, including disease outbreaks as well as natural and human-made disasters. And whereas public health supports and advocates for everyone's right to a healthy life and works to advance health equity. And whereas healthy people and healthy communities provide a foundation for a strong, diverse, and vibrant society. Whereas Washington County has made great strides in improving the health and well-being of the community over the past 20 years, we still face public health challenges, including communicable disease, an increasing burden of chronic diseases, and the disproportionate burden of disease by ethnicity, race, and income status. And whereas we recognize communities of color are strong, resilient, and carry unique knowledge and experiences to thrive and survive, and that meaningful engagement and leadership from within these communities is fundamental to addressing health inequities. And whereas a person's health status can differ drastically by zip code due to differences in the built environment, environmental quality, community context, access to healthy food, access to education, and access to healthcare. Whereas public health action, together with scientific and technological advances, has played a major role in reducing, and in some cases eliminating, the spread of infectious disease, and in establishing today's disease surveillance and control systems. And now, therefore, be it resolved that on the 5th day of April 2022, the Washington County Board of Commissioners, acting as the local public health authority, does hereby proclaim the week of April 4th through the 10th, 2022, as National Public Health Week in Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McElvray. Thank you for serving on the advisory committee and for reading the proclamation today. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions, or is there a motion to adopt today's proclamation? Go ahead, Commissioner Rogers. I should take that as a motion. We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers. Do we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Fye. Any comments? All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Commissioner Treese, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say thank you for all of your work. The advisory committee, I served on the advisory committee for a bit. It's really a very active committee. And the work that you've done over the last couple of years as a group has just been outstanding. So I just want to personally say thank you, and I'm pleased to vote for this proclamation.
Thank you very much to our public health experts who've joined us today. Next, we'll move on to our second proclamation of today. Today, we're going to be proclaiming April 2022 as Fair Housing Month in Washington County. And for that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Jenny Proctor, our program manager for the Washington County Community Development Team. Ms. Proctor. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Harrington and commissioners. I believe that the proclamation was going to be read by staff or Commissioner Treese as a member of our Policy Advisory Board. Thank you.
Take it away, Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Proctor, for all the work that you've done for our organization. I'd like to read the proclamation. Whereas the week of April 11th through April 15th, 2022 has been designated as National Community Development Week by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grants, CDBG, program, and the Home Investment Partnerships, the HOME program. And whereas the CDBG program provides annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities to people with low and moderate incomes. And whereas the Home Investment Partnerships, or HOME program, provides funding to local communities to create decent, safe, affordable housing opportunities for low-income persons. Nationally, over 1 million units of affordable housing have been completed using home funds. And whereas over the past 5 years, our community has received a total of $11,339,883 in CDBG funds and $7,882,114 in home funds. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Washington County Board of Commissioners that it hereby calls on Congress to recognize in its fiscal year 2023 budget deliberations the cost effectiveness of the CDBG and the home formula funding programs in creating sustainable communities. Be it further resolved that the Washington County Board of Commissioners urges Congress to recognize the outstanding work being done locally and nationally by the CDBG and home programs by supporting increased funding for both programs in fiscal year 2023. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Washington County to be affixed on this 5th day of April, 2022.
So, Madam Chair, just for the record, that this is currently item D3 that we kind of took out of order for D2. So you'll be voting on item D3 here.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. I did not catch up with another agenda change because the order wasn't listed as a change, and I must have missed an email that announced the change. Additionally, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Treese, for bringing this proclamation to life, because the proclamation was also updated from the original packet as well, which is what I came into the meeting with. So I now know that it is updated as well, and really brings, I'll just comment, brings pertinence as to why it is important that this year we are recognizing Fair Housing Month as we do annually. But this year there is a call to action for Congress. So thank you. So this is, as Clerk Moss mentioned, item D3. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions before we take a motion? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adopt today's proclamation as read? We have a motion from Commissioner Fye. Do we have a second? We have a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. So excuse me while I go back to my online packet here, or my online agenda. Next, we'll move on. Clerk Moss, I downloaded the packet this morning.
Yes, I'm looking at the packet, Madam Chair, and it had the 3 proclamations as listed here that is showing public. So I don't know. I will make sure to look into and see whatever glitch may have occurred. So apologies for that, but we will be on item D to promote April 2022 Fair Housing Month in Washington County, also presented by Ms. Proctor here.
No, so, excuse me, I'm going to pause. The posted agenda has item D2 as the one we just acted on. I downloaded it at just after 8:30 this morning. So I'm a little confused. Is it important that we identify numbers, or can we just do it by title, Mr. Anderson?
Title's fine. It's not critical to go with the numbers.
So we already took action on Fair Housing Month. So right now we're going to ask Ms. Proctor to please introduce our proclaiming April 11th through April 15th, 2022 as National Community Development Week in Washington County. Ms. Proctor.
I believe that's the one I just read, Chair.
Thank you. I read the title for the Fair Housing one earlier, so now I catch the mistake.
I think I interrupted and read the wrong proclamation. So that's my fault. I apologize.
Mr. Anderson, what do we do at this point?
I don't think it's critical. We have a proclamation that I think the board has approved, and we can just move on to the next proclamation.
My concern is this. When I asked for the motion, I thought I referred to the title. So if we could just make sure for the sake of our community, let's redo the motion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Since we read the proclamation for National Community Development Week, we read the proclamation to proclaim April 11th through April 15th, 2022 as National Community Development Week in Washington County, as read by Commissioner Treese. Would someone please like to make a motion to adopt this proclamation as read? We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers, a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Now we will move to the item of proclaiming April 2022 Fair Housing Month in Washington County, and I will turn it back to you, Ms. Proctor.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. I am prepared to read the proclamation. I want to just make sure that there wasn't somebody else lined up to do that.
No, there's not, Jenny. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Harrington and Commissioners, for hearing and proclaiming this proclamation for Fair Housing Month. The proclamation from the Board of Commissioners of Washington County states, whereas the year 2022 marks the 54th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, and whereas this law guarantees that housing through the United States should be made available to all community members without regard to race, color, religion, gender, familial status, disability, or national origin. And whereas Oregon Fair Housing Law guarantees that housing throughout the state of Oregon should be made available to all community members without regard to marital status, sources of income, sexual orientation, including gender identity, and survivors of domestic violence. And whereas equality of opportunity for all is a fundamental policy of this nation, state, and county. And whereas barriers which diminish the rights and limit the options of any community member will ultimately diminish the rights of all community members. And whereas only with the cooperation, commitment, and support from all of the residents of Washington County can barriers to the enjoyment of this and the other aspects of equality of opportunity for all be removed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Washington County's Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims April 2022 to be Fair Housing Month and encourages all community members to support and endorse fair housing, reaffirm their commitment to fair housing for all, and wholeheartedly recognize these rights and responsibilities throughout the year. In witness whereof, the chair sets her hand and causes the seal of Washington County, Oregon to be affixed this 5th day of April 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Proctor. Commissioners, are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adopt the proclamation as read? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese. We have a second from Commissioner Fye. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously 5-0. I'd like to thank our community members for hanging in there while we went through that process. One thing that I learned as my first year as chair back in 2019 from the then vice chair was that I am held accountable by the efficiency and effectiveness of this meeting and for any confusion that may happen. And it's my responsibility to make sure that we do things correctly procedurally so that that doesn't create any additional legal work for our staff. So thank you for your patience in making sure that I followed the right procedures. Next on the agenda, we will move to our action. Oh, sorry, public hearings first. And we have 2 public hearings. Next, we will go to our first public hearing, which is to hold a TEFRA hearing on tax-exempt bonds. This is for the Housing Authority of Washington County, also known as HAWK, AHP4 Portfolio Rehabilitation Project, and approve a resolution and order. Do we have a staff report at all before we open this public hearing?
Good morning, Chair Harrington and Board. I'll just give some quick comments on behalf of Comey here. So the TEFRA public hearing held this morning for Hawk HP4's rehabilitation project is a requirement of the private activity bonds that are part of the project's financing structure. The portfolio rehab project will renovate 332 units of regulated affordable housing at 5 properties within the Housing Authority's portfolio. The properties are located in Tigard, Forest Grove, and as Comey mentioned earlier, unincorporated Washington County and Aloha. We previously brought the project to your board and the Housing Authority Board of Directors for various approvals as the project has moved from concept towards rehab. Thank you for your ongoing support. This public hearing and related resolution order are to be considered by your board before the capital project can begin underway.
Commissioners, do you have any questions on the summary as provided by Mr. Kreitz? Seeing none, I'd like to open the public hearing. Clerk Moss.
Do we have anyone, members of the public, that wish to testify on this public hearing matter? And if there's no raised hands, I will check with our consultant, Mr. Schrader, on the public hearing line. So not seeing any hands. Mr. Schrader, is there anyone on the other public line with any comments or concerns?
There are no participants on our public line. Thank you, Clerk Moss.
You're welcome. And that concludes this public hearing, Madam Chair.
With that, I will close this public hearing. Commissioners, now I'm looking for a motion to adopt the resolution and order approving the Housing Authority's issuance of tax-exempt bonds and to approve the related resolution and order. What are the wishes of the commission? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Fye, I'm having trouble seeing a thumbs up. I see a motion from Commissioner Fye, a second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Now we'll move on to our second public hearing, and this is to consider the annexation of 7 tax lots and right-of-way totaling 19 acres to the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District. Do we have a staff report?
Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. I'm Stephen Roberts, Director of Land Use and Transportation, and Brian Robb from LUT staff is here. He'll give a pretty brief presentation before you open the public hearing, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. I'm Brian Robb, Associate Planner with Land Use and Transportation. I'll be giving a brief presentation prior to the public hearing for the minor boundary change 22-001. Next slide, please. Annexation number 22-001 is a request by CND Shoals LLC to annex 7 tax lots and right-of-way totaling approximately 19 acres into the Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District. The 7 tax lots depicted here are located on the south slope of Cooper Mountain and on the north side of Southwest Shoals Ferry Road near Southwest Strobel Road. The properties are located in the city of Beaverton. Next slide, please. This annexation was initiated by a consent petition from 100% of the property owners. It meets the substantive criteria outlined in the staff report. Both the district and the city endorsed this annexation. If approved, the annexation would become effective May 18th, 2022, due to state rules about annexations during an election year. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the board conduct the public hearing and at the conclusion of the hearing, adopt the resolution in order approving the annexation, with it becoming effective May 18th. With that, I'll conclude my presentations and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Robb? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Robb. I'd like to open today's public hearing. Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would any members of the public wish to provide public testimony on this public hearing on this annexation? Please utilize the raise hand function. I'll give you just a moment. Not seeing any hands, Madam Chair.
All righty. And with that, we'll close today's public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission with regard to this annexation? We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers. We have a second from Commissioner Fye. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to our action agenda. Today's action agenda consists of 4 items. We'll take items 1 and 2, and then we'll have the additional items of C4 and C8. So the first item is to adopt the East Basin Master Plan. We recently had a work session on this topic as the CWS Board of Commissioners. Chief of Staff, Mark Jockers.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and members of the Clean Water Services Board of Directors. I've got a brief staff report today before we ask you to adopt the East Basin Master Plan resolution in order. Clerk Moss, can you go to the next slide first? East Basin Master Plan is a planning area that covers about 230,000 residents of urban Washington County in the cities of Tigard, Tualatin, Sherwood, King City, Durham, as well as portions of Beaverton, Lake Oswego, and Portland. This is an area that Clean Water Services provides sanitary sewer service for. The East Basin area consists of our Durham Water Resource Recovery Facility in Tigard, as well as 735 miles of sewer mains, sewer interceptors and trunks, and 15 pump stations. Go to the next slide. The East Basin Master Plan is a roadmap for how we upgrade both the treatment works, the inside the fence, as well as the infrastructure, the conveyance system that delivers water to the water resource recovery facilities, which we clean before returning to the Tualatin River. We really used a number of criteria when we developed this. Where will growth occur? when and how much? And then also, how do we adapt to anticipated regulatory changes, as well as what are the impacts of climate change? Can you go to the next slide? In November of 2021, you charged Clean Water Services Advisory Commission to make a recommendation to you on the adoption of this. As you recall from the work session 2 weeks ago, the commission unanimously recommended that the board adopt this master plan. Concurrent with that, we also met with the staff in Tigard, Tualatin, Sherwood, Beaverton, King City, and Washington County to review this master plan. And our request today is that you approve the resolution in order to adopt it. I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions with regard to this action today? Seeing none, I will just close with the clarification that the date that we had this plan presented to us in work session was on Tuesday, March 15th. I made some complimentary remarks to our staff for the work of this plan, and I continue to believe in those comments and will leave it as such. Commissioners, hearing no additional comments or questions, do we have a motion to adopt the East Basin Master Plan? We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers, a second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Are there any commissioners opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we have an action item to adopt the charter of the Advisory Committee of Racial Equity, also known as ACRE. Do we have Ms. Tillman with us today for a staff?
Chair Harrington, Ms. Tillman is unable to attend, so in her place, Amanda Garcia Snell will be kicking this off.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Garcia Snell. And we also have John L. Bell with us today. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. We squeaked in right before the afternoon. Good morning, Chair Harrington and commissioners. As Ms. Angie mentioned, Latricia Tillman, our Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, isn't able to be here, so I will do my best to channel her eloquence. I'm Amanda Garcia Snell, the Community Engagement Manager in the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement, and I'm here to tee up this presentation about the Advisory Council on Racial Equity Charter. I am joined by John L. Bell and hopefully Tony DeFalco with Latino Network is also on. I can't see the full picture, so hopefully he's available as well. And also in the virtual room is my colleague, Ashley Horn, the Equity Policy Manager in the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement, who has led this work to date. Next slide, please. As you may recall, a little over 2 years ago, your board passed the equity resolution that carried with it the establishment of an advisory council on racial equity. Last summer, we shared our strategic action plan, which included some of the specifics related to the development of the advisory council. And last month, Latricia and some of our community partners, including John L. and Tony, came to your board to share the process of and the elements included in the draft charter that we co-created with 20 of our closest friends, our culturally specific and culturally responsive community partners. And now I will hand it over to John L. and Tony to share a bit more about the Advisory Council timeline and elements.
Great. Well, thank you, Amanda, Chair Harrington, members of the board. Once again, John L. Bell with Espousal Strategies. Great to see everyone. Next slide, please. This slide just really highlights all of the work that has gone into today, which is a moment that we're hoping the board will act to establish ACRE. You'll recall that the creation of this committee was established in the board's equity resolution in response to a lot of the feedback we received at that time by community stakeholders really wanting to have a formal way by which they could really provide direct feedback to the board. And you all agreed and integrated that into your equity resolution. So we've been working over the past several months. Next slide, please. The number of community partners. This has really been a co-production. Spousal had the opportunity of leading the facilitation with the Office of Equity and Community Involvement to really work with a number of just phenomenal community partners, some of whom are mentioned here: Adelante, Apano, Vienna Star. You can see that it was just a rich group. We had 4 planning meetings with these community partners, and we really asked them to roll up their sleeves and provide recommendations as to how the acre ought to be structured, the types of topics acre perhaps should focus on. And what I'll note is many of the participants were executive directors, and we all know how busy our executive directors are of our community-based organizations. And you know, they showed up for 4 meetings, 2 to 3 hour meetings, really rolling up their sleeves. So you really have really got the best counsel, I think, in our region. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Tony DeFalco.
Thank you, John L. Really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today. It's an honor and privilege to be here. My name is Tony DeFalco. I currently serve as the Executive Director at Latino Network, very proud partner of Washington County for many years now, and continuing to strengthen our partnership. And I want to again commend the commission as well as the staff for a very strong, consistent, and clear process to develop the Advisory Council on Racial Equity. As you can see, the next slide, please. So I just want to quickly run through the goals of the Advisory Council on Racial Equity. The first goal is to center and build racial equity, diversity, and inclusion into the county's strategic plan, legislative agenda, policies, programmatic priorities, and departmental priorities. The second goal is to engage with the community to establish external accountability and to ensure community needs are prioritized by the county. The process of creating and developing these goals was, as John L. noted, a strong, inclusive process with very high-level leadership from the broad cross-section of organizations that you saw in the previous slide. And I'm very excited to have these goals in front of you today. Next slide. So the authority and duration of the Advisory Council on Racial Equity. This is a permanent and ongoing body to advise Washington County's Board of Commissioners and county leadership on the advancement of equity, diversity, and inclusion, best and promising practices. The authority of ACRE includes endorsement prior to board adoption of strategic plan, ensuring equity is embedded in budget decisions, and legislative agenda. As a group, collectively, we're very excited about the ability to be a valuable partner to the county and county leadership, and to provide the kinds of insights that are unique for many of the communities that you saw listed, and to have that on an ongoing basis. Next slide. So the scope of work, I referenced the strategic plan, legislative agenda, ensuring equity is embedded in budget decisions in the previous slide. Additional scope of the Advisory Council is in helping the leadership and commission develop racial equity tools, equity outcome metrics, community equity and diversity and inclusion needs and priorities. And I think this is a critical issue for the communities that are present in the county, to have the ability to lift up those priorities and needs directly to the commission and to county leadership is critical and ongoing. and equitable procurement and contracting in order to ensure strong partnerships with minority and woman-owned businesses and other appropriate businesses in the county. And those goals will be determined via a biennial work plan by the Advisory Council on Racial Equity. Next slide. So the membership is an appointment process. The board appoints. The membership includes county residents and community partners representing racial equity expertise, geographic and demographic diversity, lived experience of racial inequity. There are 15 members, 2 board liaisons, and a 6-year maximum consecutive service. There are co-chairs, including a board liaison and community representatives who have 2-year terms. And with that, I will turn it back over to, I believe, Amanda, yes?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. So as you can see, excuse me, in regard to convening ACRE, it will be co-chairs, which as mentioned are representatives from your board and a representative from the community that will convene with support from staff liaisons. And OEICE staff will also serve as subject matter experts. The group will use a modified consensus building approach to decision making, and then also hoping to have support in addition to OEICE also from the board staff assistants. So we are also fortunate enough to be joined by Nate McCoy, who is from the National Association of Minority Contractors, and he is going to share a few words before we wrap up.
Thank you, Amanda. For good of the order, Madam Chair Harrington and fellow county commissioners, thank you for having me here today. On this monumental day. My name is Nate McCoy, Executive Director of the National Association of Minority Contractors, our Oregon chapter. I'm very humbled to be in the company of both Tony DeFalco, John L. Bell, Tricia Tillman, all the team at the Washington County levels, as well as this committee that was brought together and conceived of, I want to say, almost 3 years ago. And this work has been very impactful. I can tell you to see it very closely tied to the community in Washington County, and honestly guided by a lot of the core values and principles I think NAMAC stands for and many of our partners. And I just want to read a few because this is very much aligned with many of our CBOs in the community. For NAMAC, we look at an organization like ours being an anti-racist focused organization, delivering effective and efficient services to our community, being organizationally and individually accountable for our actions in our communities that we support, leading, being a differentiator as well as an innovator, and then also bringing in relationships and community building opportunities like this coalition of partners we've got here today, all with an eye towards our most favorite topic of our vision and values, which is this eye towards economic justice for our communities. So all of that being not only a NAMAC effort, but many of our CBOs and seeing the Washington County also participate in that is very impactful and very intentional. And so as much as we all are busy, as John L. said, as executive directors of many of these organizations, we all took the time because we saw Washington County not only putting its words in place, but its actions to support those words. And so we wanted to just make sure we were all here to both celebrate, but also move this agenda towards real action and real change in this region, and hopefully a blueprint across all of our other regions to show that this work can be done and done timely. So I just again applaud Washington County's leadership of you all who've embraced this work, and hopefully will approve it to continue. And we just hope that we will continue to come back and show success. So I will stop there and thank you all again for this opportunity to participate.
Thanks, Nate, and thank you, John L. and Tony. And I really want to extend appreciation and thank you to all the other members of the ACRE Planning Committee for their leadership and co-creation in this charter. And especially want to just give a shout out to Maria Rubio and Marcus Monday, who in 2019 came to the board to suggest a body like this, which really launched a lot of this work in a formal way. So really appreciating that I was in the room at that time and still in the room for this. And with that, next slide, please. I would like to ask your board to adopt the acre charter.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia Snell, and to our esteemed experts and speakers who joined us today. Commissioners, any questions, comments, or motion? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Well, yeah, I guess I'd like to ask the question, maybe this is a Brad question. On slide 6 there, it says duration acre would be permanent and ongoing body. Is that typical for all of our other charter organizations, that they would be put in there that they are permanent, or is that just means it's permanent until the commission decides it's not?
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Willie. We usually don't have language regarding that issue. We're usually silent. Commissions, because you approve this actual charter, will be the ones that will decide, if at some point that you want to change it in any way. But typically, all of our boards and commissions keep going on and on and on until the board decides they don't need them anymore. Usually, it's rare for us to remove boards and commissions, though, but that's ultimately a board decision.
Well, but what I'm asking is does this verbiage in this one preclude that?
I don't think so, because it's the boards that's adopting it. The board can unadopt it if it's your choice or a future board's choice.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that that future commissions, I guess, would have the ability to either modify this or do something else, maybe adopt a different one that would be better than this one. But I just didn't want us to be handcuffing both ourselves and our future commissioners.
I don't think you're doing that if you adopt this.
Okay, thank you.
Other commissioner questions or comments at this time? Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
I just want to again express my appreciation to the work that's gone on behind this. It is certainly the next steps as we progress through the commitments that we made through our resolution. And I greatly appreciate the work of our staff and of our community leaders. So thank you very much.
So before I ask for a motion, I will go last in terms of comments. First, I will clarify the reason why the word permanent is in there is to send a signal to our community members that we're being very intentional about ensuring that they see us as committed to following through on this important equity work on behalf of our community. It's a phraseology that I know I asked Ms. Tillman when we had a work session on this previously. I will share that I'm very grateful for the work that has been done, not only by our team members and vast community members, but those who have been named in the presentation, as well as those of you who are here with us today. As I'm working to contain my appreciation, please let my words of sincerity and professionalism come across to you and to our community, who committed their time, lived experience, and future vision to co-create this committee charter. I wish it success in working with this and future Washington County Boards of Commission. Thank you. What are the wishes of the commission? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese. We have a second from Commissioner Fye. All those in favor of adopting the charter for the Advisory Committee on Racial Equity, please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, everyone, to our panel of experts for joining us here today and bringing the value of this to life. The next item on our action item is item C7 from our published agenda. It is to approve the Housing Production Opportunity Fund Award of $500,000 for the Tigard Senior Housing Apartments project. There is an associated item to authorize the county administrator or their designee to execute required project documents related to the Tigard Senior Housing project. Now, I do anticipate we will need separate motions on this, but based upon the comments earlier, I think Commissioner Rogers would also like the board to weigh in directing staff to compose a letter for our subsequent approval to encompass comments that are to be finalized before us soon. A letter from the Board of Commissioners, if I understood it correctly, but I'll leave that to Commissioner Rogers to highlight. So at this juncture, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you. I know there are two different actions. I can almost take both of them at the same time. It would seem to me that it would be appropriate due to the sensitivity of the issues in the Tigard area. And let me talk about the senior center site first. A lot of residents are concerned about the development of the particular site because of its topography and its location. It's sandwiched in between a church and a local residence, and it's on a residential street. There really isn't normal sidewalks and side width of street, and so they have a number of concerns. All of that, I think, should be best left to the city of Tigard. I don't disagree with any of that. I don't disagree really with the project either, other than I think it would be sensitive on our part to say to the residents, we've heard you. We understand the concerns. It's a tight, very, very tight site in a residential area, and that we certainly recommend that the city of Tigard consider all those factors and adjust the plans to best accommodate the community. In addition, that if we could clarify our role, we're simply an agency that passes these funds through. We're not the siting criteria, nor will we have any involvement in the actual siting design. So I might be wrong on the design, Josh. You might have some involvement there, but I wouldn't think so. I think it's all City of Tigard design. So what I'm requesting is that we approve the action, but simply have a clarification letter indicating that we respectfully, these are our citizens as well. We've heard them, we understand their issues, and we ask that the City of Tigard City Council consider them in regard to approving this particular project. So that's it.
Commissioner Rogers, I have a request before we get to the actual mechanics of the individual motions. Would you please consider a friendly amendment such that our staff composes such a letter for our further approval and adoption, but also that they craft a statement such that, because we've heard testimony in prior weeks, and we have done through comments and questions from our staff to speakers, tried to deliver the message there, as well as through emails that we received that provides the summary of what you just talked about. But in anticipation of this continuing to occur, Ms. Angie, could you have staff, please, yourself or your staff, develop a statement such that on every occasion that from here on out, where we receive an email from community members on this project, or if we hear testimony in our business meetings, that we will read such a statement to make it clear, no matter who's chairing the meeting.
Perfect, I agree. I think that makes sense.
Okay, so thank you, Commissioner Rogers. So I think we have 3 different motions that we need to take care of. Why don't we take care of the last one first with regard to the letters and the statement? Because our actions to approve those things follow. So Commissioner Rogers has made a motion that a letter be developed and approved by the board to encompass the comments that he articulated. Am I stating your motion correctly?
I think it's perfect. What I'd love to have is, and I think it's appropriate because we're going to see these throughout the county, some kind of a generalized letter expressing that we've heard our residents, which are their residents, and we encourage them to take that into consideration as they develop the site plans. I mean, I think a letter like that's perfect. It goes on.
Well, I think we have to be a little careful because this is a project where the land is donated by the city. And I don't know that any of our affordable housing projects to date have had this circumstance. The other projects have been by contract with the county and a private developer.
This one's a very unusual one. If you were on the road, you'd see that the road is elevated and you have to go down to the senior center, and it's down in, of course, to a floodplain.
Yes, I've done a site visit.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, very tight, very, yeah. My main thrust is to say, hey, we've heard you, that we wanted to go to the city of Tigard for their consideration, and that we're just simply a funding agency. So I would welcome Tanya's wordsmithing of that so that it gets to a point that it's understandable. Not beating up on Tigard, just asking them to consider.
Commissioners, is that motion clear?
That's very clear, but I had a question for Josh. Sorry to put you on the spot, Josh, but beyond saying we heard you, is there any mitigation opportunities that we could offer other than saying we heard you? So I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do on our part to provide some comfort to the residents.
Yeah, well, I will just update for your board. There's 23 community engagement functions over the last 2.5 years around this project. We're happy to kind of think through other types of educational opportunities and learning opportunities as a staff and work with Tanya and county administration on that, absolutely. So we can think through that, and we're absolutely happy to work with Tanya on the letter as well that the board is considering right now.
And we can add this to leadership updates for next week for board's consideration.
So we summarized desired direction to our staff to compose a letter for subsequent approval, as well as a subsequent statement that, as Ms. Angie, she has mentioned. So let's just get direction. Let's just get board approval on that direction. Since we're in a formal business meeting, I'll ask Commissioner Rogers, is that the appropriate motion? Okay, do we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, I need to hear a motion with regard to approving the Housing Production Opportunity Fund award of $500,000 for Tigard Senior Housing Apartments project.
if I could express the concern here, and I sound like I'm picking on Tigard. I'm not at all. I think they're doing a great job. But from what I understand, and two counselors have brought this particular issue up, the development is sitting not very many blocks from where I'm sitting right now talking to you. It's on a particular grid pattern that's really not developed. It's with no sidewalks, with no parking. They're hoping that there will be adequate bus service. I don't think we've ever developed a project like that where there hasn't been any parking for residents. I guess they have an electric vehicle they're going to lend out from time to time. That doesn't address a whole big development like this, but I've always been a big multimodal guy of sidewalks and bike paths and street grids. It makes sense. Do you really put a development into something that has none of those? I mean, good project, yeah. Fill in the need, yeah. But what are they doing to is it just a project to be done, or is there, Josh, do you know, is there some sort of thoughtful way that this is all going to be massaged into a multimodal transportation facility? I mean, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, well, I'll speak at a high level. I know that the developer, Trell Anderson, we had emails back and forth with them that as they were following the city of Tigard's planning process, that there was no parking study required for this development. And so that's one of the reasons we don't have a parking study to kind of share. I'll invite Shannon Wilson in to see if there's a little bit more information around the parking plans and the transportation concerns at the site that she's heard and the different community engagement processes.
Yes, well, good morning, commissioners. So just to respond to your question or your comments, Commissioner Rogers. So I was reviewing the plans and information we received from the developer, Northwest Housing Alternatives, which is a large nonprofit developer in the state. And so there are 25 proposed spaces on site to be dedicated for the housing. So there are 57 units and then 25 parking spaces, and then an additional 48 spaces that will be available for the Tigard Senior Center. And so they'll be available for the senior center during the day, with the potential that residents could use those when the senior center is closed.
I'm very confused what you just said, because this isn't by the project I'm talking is in the triangle. Project you're talking about is at the senior center. That's a mile away.
Oh, I apologize. I thought we were discussing the Tigard Senior Housing Project.
No, I'm talking about the one that's in the triangle. Are we not talking about the same project?
Well, the items before you this morning are related to the Tigard Senior Housing Project, right? That's right adjacent to the next door to the Tigard Senior Center.
Okay, well then I misunderstood, because I thought part of that funding was going to go to the project in the triangle with no parking available. So this isn't, I misread it then, if that's the case, and I apologize. So this doesn't impact that new project, the big one that's going in the Tigard Triangle. It's only on the,
I'm sorry.
your funding is not, your funding
means
is
the
not,
one on Greenberg Road.
no, it's on
No,
Greenberg.
not that one.
It's on Clinton Street and about 69th, 68th, 70th, right in there. They're asking for our money. If that doesn't include that, then I retract my comments and we'll talk about it another time. But
I'm not familiar with a project at that location. There's another one, Dartmouth Crossing, but that is at Dartmouth and 72nd in the triangle that is under pre-development now. That's the only one I'm aware of. That's another affordable housing project that doesn't have any commitment of any Metro bond funds that I'm aware of.
okay, all right. Well, then I retract and we can just approve it. And I thought that project was using some of our funds as well. I've been listening to some of those counselors, so that's I thought it was all wrapped up. A lot of money and a lot of different projects. So, okay, all right. Thank you. I make a motion then that we approve item C8. Consent agenda item 8.
Well, hang on first.
Okay.
I'm sorry, folks, I'm a little confused. We heard testimony earlier today from 3 different individuals who were testifying against the Tigard Senior Housing Project. And that relates specifically to items C7 and C8. So I had asked for a motion and approval for item C7 first. And you had a question before we moved on that motion.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I understand the
Okay,
tie between
so
7 and
can-
8, but I thought there was also another project in 8, and that's what I was referring to. So, yeah.
Could we first, we have a motion and a second on item C7. Could we please take a vote on item C7 before we move to item C8 as you were proposing?
Well, I thought we already did that. I made a motion and Commissioner Willie seconded it on
So-
7.
Mr. Anderson, could you please make sure I do this correctly procedurally? I thought I knew and thought I reiterated it, so I will be quiet now.
Yes, I think we were dealing with item C7 at this point, and I think we've got a motion that, and then there was, and then Commissioner Rogers had some discussion on that motion. So that's what's before you right now. So you should probably vote on that motion on C7.
Call for the question. C7.
All those in favor of approving the Housing Production Opportunity Fund for $500,000 for the Tigard Senior Housing Apartments Project, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. I can't see Commissioner Fives. Oh, thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to item C8 to authorize the county administrator or their designee to execute required project documents related to the Tigard Senior Housing Project.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers, a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to our second public comment period. This is an opportunity for 5 minutes per person to engage with us. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone wishing to speak with us at this time?
Madam Chair, we did have one person signed up, but I no longer see them online. And would any other members of the public wish to provide comments for up to 5 minutes? Not seeing any additional hands, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we'll move on to board announcements. This Thursday, we have a Clean Water Services Board of Directors training session that begins at 9 a.m. Next Tuesday is devoted to work session topics. The work session will start at 9 o'clock. That is Tuesday, April 12th. The following Tuesday, April 19th, we'll have a work session that convenes at 9 a.m., a business board meeting at 10 a.m., and then we'll reconvene in board work session. On Thursday, April 21st, we have a budget committee orientation scheduled for 6 p.m. That meeting and all of our subsequent board committee meetings for Washington County and all of its component parts will be held by Zoom this year, none in person, for the most access for our community members. The last meeting of this month will be on Tuesday, April 26th, with a work session that starts at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, followed by an evening board meeting that starts at 6:30. Those are some upcoming board announcements. Are there any other board announcements from commissioners today? Seeing none, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn, and I would like to recognize the time at 10 minutes past 12. We are slated to reconvene in work session at 1 p.m. Are commissioners okay with that, or do you want us to adjust it to 10 minutes past 1? I'm not hearing anything. I see one finger raised. Okay, so we will reconvene at 1 o'clock. Do we have a motion to adjourn today's board meeting? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese. Do we have a second? We have a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. See you back at 1 p.m. Bye-bye.